2003, March of 2003, May of 2003, and I was subsequently given a Nevada license to practice law in March of 2005. From March of 2003 on, I've been active in the Nevada Bar's Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers program, which is a program affiliated with the State Bar of Nevada that is somewhat analogous to the LAP or the other bar programs that are in California. That's included meeting once a week with a group of attorneys for an hour-long meeting, and I've had some experience in the law. I worked in a litigation firm, and I worked in a medical malpractice firm, and I don't know what else I might be able to say to prove that I have character.
Okay, so do we have cross-examination?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Okay, so at this point I'm going to make a ruling that you've made a prima facie case that you have good moral character. And so now the issue is going to be the State Bar rebutting that good character. So I'm going to make a ruling that you've shown that you've made enough of a case that you have good moral character. So now the State Bar can present their evidence to rebut that, okay? Okay, so you can step down and you can then cross-examine their witnesses.
Actually, I'm going to call Mr. Coughlin as my first witness.
Okay.
Okay, what I'd like to do first, Mr. Coughlin, is go through all of the applications and updates that you've submitted to the State Bar. Yes?
Excuse me, if I may. Do I have to be examined? Is this a situation
She's
where...
putting you on as her first witness in her case.
Okay, so it's not as similar to a criminal case where one can refuse to take the stand?
No, you can't refuse to take the stand.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 1, Mr. Coughlin.
I'm sorry, but would it be possible to use the restroom?
Sure.
Okay.
So why don't we take a 5-minute break so you can use the restroom.
Great, thank you.
Back on the record? Back on the record.
Mr. Coughlin, please turn to Exhibit 1. Do you recognize Exhibit 1?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
My original application, moral character applications to State Bar of California.
This is something that you filed with the State Bar?
Yes.
Okay. Can you look at pages 1 through 25 and advise whether or not every single page was submitted by you to the State Bar?
believe so. Yes.
Your Honor, I would request to move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is moved into evidence.
Let's move on to Exhibit 2, Mr. Coughlin. Do you recognize Exhibit 2? Let me just put on the record, Exhibit 2 is a 3-page exhibit. First page is entitled Amendment to Application. The second page is a letter on the letterhead of Zachary Barker Coughlin, dated March 19, 2003. And page 3 is a letter entitled Application of Zachary B. Coughlin, dated February 23, 2003.
The question is, do I recognize?
Exhibit 2.
And that would be these 3 pages.
Yes.
I recognize the first page. The second page, I don't see a signature, but it looks familiar. And the third page, I recognize.
Let's turn to the second page then. Is this a letter that you submitted to the State Bar?
I'm not sure.
Did you write this letter, Mr. Coughlin?
I think I did. It would help if there was a signature on it, though.
Other than the signature, do you know whether or not you wrote this page?
I'm not sure. My guess would be that I did, though.
I move to have Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is admitted into evidence.
Turn to Exhibit 3, Mr. Coughlin. Exhibit 3 is a 38-page exhibit on the letterhead of Zach Coughlin, dated February 15, 2007. Do you recognize Exhibit 3?
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
As the update that I mailed to you for my moral character application.
I request to have Exhibit 3 moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It's admitted into evidence, Exhibit 3.
Move to Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 is a 22-page exhibit, and the first page is entitled State Bar of Nevada Application for Admission 2001 Data Input Sheet. Do you recognize Exhibit 4?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's the application for admission to the State Bar of Nevada.
Is this something that you submitted to the State Bar of Nevada?
Yes.
Request to have Exhibit 4 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 4 is admitted into evidence.
Okay, let's turn to Exhibit 17, please.
17?
Yes. Exhibit 17 is a 5-page exhibit. And the first page is dated January 9, 2003. Attention, Kathy Crary. And the middle of the page says, Sincerely, Zach Coughlin. Do you recognize Exhibit 17?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
A letter to Ms. Crary from myself.
I request to have Exhibit 17 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 17 is admitted into evidence.
Now let's turn to Exhibit 19, please. Exhibit 19 is a 2-page exhibit, and the first page is entitled Application of Zachary B. Coughlin, and it's dated February 23, 2003. Do you recognize Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's a letter from myself to Ms. Crary.
I request to have Exhibit 19 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 19 is admitted into evidence.
Okay, Mr. Coughlin, I'd like you now to turn to Exhibit 20. Exhibit 20 is a 1-page exhibit, and it is dated March 5th, 2003, and to Zachary B. Coughlin from Kathy Crary. Do you recognize Exhibit 20?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's, as you say, a letter from Miss Curry to myself.
Did you receive this letter?
Yes, I did.
I request to have Exhibit 20 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 20 is admitted.
Okay. Next exhibit I'd like to turn to is 21, which is in, I believe, the other binder. Exhibit 21 is a 15-page exhibit, and the first page is entitled Amendment to Application, and dated March 19, 2003. Do you recognize Exhibit 21?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
It's the amendment to the application that I submitted. I don't see a signature on the second page, but I do recognize the police report. And
Was that the end of your answer?
Yes.
I request to have Exhibit 21 moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Exhibit 21 is admitted.
Apologize. Let's move on to Exhibit 25. Exhibit 25 is a two-page exhibit. The first page is to Mrs. Kathy Crary, dated September 15, 2003, from Zach Coughlin. The second page is another letter dated September 15, 2003, to Mrs. Kathy Crary from Zach Coughlin. Do you recognize this exhibit?
I don't know. It looks familiar. There's two letters that look like they're the same letter, pretty much. So, I have a vague recollection of this.
Is this something that you submitted to the State Bar?
I believe so.
I request to have Exhibit 25 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 25 is admitted.
Okay, if we can turn to page 34, please. Excuse me, Exhibit 34.
Okay.
Excuse me, let me correct that. Can we turn to Exhibit 32 first? Exhibit 32 is a 4-page exhibit. The first page is on the letterhead of Zach Coughlin, J.D. It's dated May 31st, 2004. Do you recognize Exhibit 32?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
I believe it's a letter I sent Miss Crary.
I request to have Exhibit 32 moved into
Is
evidence.
there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 32 is admitted into evidence.
Okay, now please turn to Exhibit 34. Oh, strike that. Exhibit 39, I apologize. Of Exhibit 39, please turn to page 29 of that exhibit. 29 and 30 of that exhibit. Page 29 is a letter on the letter of Zach Coughlin, J.D., to Pam Poley. The second page of that exhibit is the second page of the letter, signed Zach Coughlin. Do you recognize page 29 and 30 of Exhibit 39?
Yes. It's a
Do you
letter.
recognize it?
It's a letter to Ms. Poley from myself.
A request to have pages 29 and 30 from Exhibit 39 moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Page 29 and 30 of Exhibit 39 are moved into evidence. Or admitted.
Just 29 and 30, Your Honor?
Yes, so far.
Okay.
Okay, please turn next to Exhibit 72, Mr. Coughlin.
Exhibit
72.
72.
Specifically, please turn to pages 33 through 57 of that exhibit. Page 33 is entitled Mental Health, and this is a document that goes through page 57, and it's signed, or it says, "Thank you, Zach Coughlin, ESQ," on the last page. Do you recognize these pages of this exhibit?
Yes. It's a lab questionnaire.
Is this a questionnaire that you filled out and provided to LAP?
Yes.
I request to have pages 33 through 57 of Exhibit 72 moved into evidence.
33 through 57 of Exhibit 72
Yes.
moved into evidence. Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
72, pages 33 to 57 are admitted.
Mr. Coughlin, on July 8, 2004, did you take part in an informal conference with the Committee of Bar Examiners?
I believe so.
And are you aware that that conference was audio taped?
Yes, I am.
And were you provided a copy of the transcript from that conference, from the audio tape?
Yes, I was.
I'd like to turn to Exhibit 12. Exhibit 12 is a 10-page exhibit, and it's entitled Informal Conference of July 8, 2004, Zachary Coughlin. Does this exhibit accurately represent what was on the audio tape?
I believe so.
I request to have Exhibit 12 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 12 is admitted into evidence.
Your Honor, I also have the audio tape of the informal conference if that's necessary. That's Exhibit 11.
Okay. You want it admitted?
Yes. To be sure, yes, I would. I request
Is there any
to have.
objection?
No, Your Honor.
11 is admitted.
I'd like to turn to Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5 is a 25-page exhibit, and the first page, it's an email from Zacharias Coughlin to mtratos at corkandtratos.com. Do you recognize Exhibit 5?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
That was an email from myself to Professor Tratos, followed by what appears to be a handwritten response from Professor Tratos to myself.
So I'd like you to look at the entire exhibit, pages 1 through 25, and advise whether or not these are emails between yourself and Professor Tratos.
The initial email seems to be missing. The one where he asked for another copy of my paper. I remember we had a long discussion about that one email and his asking for another copy of the paper.
Is that represented by page 8 of the exhibit?
Let me see. Yes.
So going back to my earlier question, do these emails represent emails between yourself and Professor Tratos?
Well, they appear to be presented in some kind of chronological order. However, say page 8 should be first.
Okay, but other than the chronological order, can you answer the question?
Yes, they appear to be emails between Professor Tratos and myself.
Request to have Exhibit 5 moved into evidence.
Any objection?
I'd object to the extent that this stems from a investigation done by
Okay, but what's your legal objection?
privacy.
Overruled. Exhibit 5 is admitted into evidence.
Please turn to Exhibit 6, Mr. Coughlin. Exhibit 6 is a one-page exhibit. It's dated April 7th, 2006, to Zachary B. Coughlin from Janice R. Tebal. Do you recognize Exhibit 6?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's a letter from Miss Tebow.
To you?
Yes.
You received this letter?
I'm not sure of that.
I request to have Exhibit 6 moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7 is moved into evidence.
6.
Excuse me, 6. Sorry.
Moving on to Exhibit 7. Please turn to page 12 of that exhibit, Mr. Coughlin. Page 12 of that exhibit is entitled Zach Coughlin, Esquire, and it appears to be a resume. Do you recognize Exhibit 12?
That's page 12?
I'm sorry, Exhibit 7, page 12.
Yes, it does appear to be a resume. I recognize it.
Is this your resume?
I believe so, yes. And I'm sorry to ask again, but can I use the restroom again, Your Honor?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Can I just, before we go off the record, can I request to have Exhibit 7, page 12 moved into evidence?
Page 12.
Yes.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7, page 12 is moved into evidence.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break? Because we're going to go until 1 o'clock. Okay.
Back on the record.
Okay, back on the record.
Was the last exhibit that we just entered into evidence, Exhibit
7, I think?
7, page 12?
Just 12, yeah,
Okay.
page 12.
Okay. Sorry if this is a little out of order, but let's move to Exhibit 8, please. Exhibit 8 is a...
There was no way we could have had stipulations?
We tried to work on them, Your
Okay.
Honor. However, I mean, if he's willing to stipulate now to all of the exhibits, I have 74 exhibits. If he'd like to take some time to review, and if he has any objection, I'd be happy to do it that way.
That might be easier. Are you willing to do that? Go over the exhibits and just give me a list of the ones you have objections to, or? I don't want to put any pressure on you. If you don't feel like at this point you can, why don't we just proceed? And because I realize it's a lot for you to have to look at, so why don't we just proceed?
Go through one by one?
Sure.
Okay. Back to Exhibit 8. Exhibit 8 is a 5-page exhibit. It's on the letterhead of Thingvold Lynn, and it's from Rob Walton to Lynn Thingvold, subject Zach Coughlin. Do you recognize Exhibit 8?
No.
Do you recognize the emails from rob.walton@unishippers.com to and from zanvbar2@hotmail.com?
So the first email we're not talking about, the one to Ms. Thingfold?
No, I'm talking about the other emails.
They look familiar.
And how do they look familiar?
They deal with a gentleman, Rob, who I know. They involve subject matter I'm familiar with.
I request to have Exhibit 8 moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 8 is moved into evidence.
Let's turn to Exhibit 9, Mr.